Well, let's open our Bibles on the way to Ezekiel, to Luke 21. And what I'd like to encourage you with, I mean, you can buy a Joel Osteen book or buy an old Hal Lindsey book at the bookstore and learn about Ezekiel 38, 39, 36, 37. But before we look at prophecy, we should consider tonight when Jesus taught prophetic scriptures, actually inspired them and wrote them, spoke them and they were recorded. What was his emphasis? Was it on making sure that his view was, well defended, or was it bigger than that? And so tonight, as we look at Ezekiel 38 and 39, Gog and Magog, who are major subjects in biblical prophecy, and God's chosen people of promise, and there's no doubt that God said, I have sovereignly elected Israel. And if there's any sovereignly elected believer alive in this world or has ever lived, the same hope of never losing your salvation is the very same promise God said that I will never remove my sovereign election of the ethnic, national descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, Israel has not been replaced by us because of God's sovereign election. But why does it even matter that we study all this? So this evening, Luke 21:36, we have a question. Today, are we living for heaven each day of our lives? Today and each of the days of our lives. And look what Jesus says. He gives this long prophetic teaching. Starting, you can go all the way back to verse 5. It's basically Matthew 24, only through Luke's careful research. Luke was a 2,000-year-ago version of Keith Small, this careful researching doctor. But look what Jesus says. When you hear of wars, verse 9, and commotions, boy, that's what we're hearing. Don't be terrified. These things must come to pass first, but the end won't come immediately. And then he goes through all the things we've heard. And then he starts talking in verse 20 about the destruction of Jerusalem, and then those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. And then he gets into verse 25, what is now close to what we're studying in Revelation. And there will be signs in the sun, Luke 21:25. The moon, remember the sun dims this morning by 1/3 we saw. The moon dims, the stars dim. On the earth, distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring, and they certainly will if there's all this volcanic eruption and earthquakes that God clearly describes. Verse 26, interesting Greek word, apsuko. People's spirits pop out. It actually means to pop out. It says that men's hearts failing them from fear. People will actually not have panic attacks, they'll have panic deaths, because it will just be so overwhelming what they see. Failing them, verse 26, for fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heaven will be shaken. That's code for it's going to be terrifying. It's going to be like you're living in one of these high-tech flop movies of this summer that they spent hundreds of millions of dollars, only they only work inside the auditorium. You'll be living in the world will be like some end-of-time movie, only it's real. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in power and great glory. Now look at verse 28. Now, when these things begin to happen, look up, lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. And then, now here comes the application, starting in verse 29. And he spoke to them a parable, and he said, look at the fig tree. And we all know that. Verse 33, heaven and earth will pass away. My words will by no means pass away. Verse 34, application again. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, cares of this life, that day come on you unexpectedly. Now look at verse 36. Here's the ultimate. Watch therefore and pray always, that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things that will come to pass and stand before the Son of Man. Now it's interesting, the word pray. Let's do a quick word study. When he says in verse 36, after all of his prophetic studies, watch therefore and pray. Watch is interesting. Gregorio, this is where Gregory comes from. It means to be vigilant. So be vigilant. But verse 36 continues, and pray always. Now, there are 7 different words in Greek for prayer. This one is very interesting. Pray is the word for beg, implore, and beseech. It is one of the most intense words for prayer. It was used after a chapter filled with prophecy and end-time events. And basically what Jesus was asking, and before we go into Gog and Magog, and I show you all the maps and everything else, Jesus was saying, what are you intensely asking or begging God to do through your life that will last forever? Did you notice what he says there? Watch therefore and pray always that you may be counted worthy to escape all these things and that come to pass and stand before the Son of Man. What is he talking about? He's talking about this whole idea that Paul enlarges greatly on, that we're all going to stand. In fact, that's what I just spoke on to the 500 students from 33 countries Friday. You're going to stand and give an account. An accounting. It's kind of like your parents or your boss gives you $20 or $50 or $1,000 and says you can spend it according to these rules, and then the accounting department is going to check it out. Jesus says, I'm going to check how you spent your life. And what are you begging God to do through your life that will last forever? That's what should most be on our hearts whenever we think about prophecy. One of the challenges as students of the Bible that we are given is to study and search the Scriptures and seek to come to biblical conclusions and then wait. We are called to do what the Lord left us to do and not to spend all of our time speculating about what every possible news event has to do with these prophecies. You know, there's some people that are so prophecy-minded, they're of no kingdom good. Have you ever met them? They don't want to talk to people about the gospel. They want to talk about the chips that are getting implanted somewhere, you know, and the government doing something, and their, Social Security number, their credit card or something. And what the Lord says is what should be most on your heart as you study prophecy is not whether our view is perfect, whether every detail is what's going to happen. It's whether we're living for what really matters. Did you know there's no reverse in life? It's one way. You can't go back. You can only go forward. And are you making sure that every moment that we have speeding by us at 60 minutes an hour, we're redeeming as many of them as possible? That's what Jesus is talking about. And God is watching over his word. He's going to perform it. So don't worry about the prophecies, by the way. God says, that's my department. I'm going to watch over them. They're all going to happen just the way I planned. He said, what I want you to be found is faithfully doing what I left you to do. So we'll come back, by the way, at the end, and I'll talk to you about what Jesus said lasts forever. And you can just do a little self-exam. Are those things high on the priority list? Or are what he talks about weighed down, verse 34, with carousing and drunkenness and cares of this life? Did you know that there are many people that are actually intoxicated? That means they are addicted to everything but God. Amusements, entertainments, working out, their health, their music, their social lives. I mean, they sleep with their phone or whatever their digital device is. But have they memorized a verse in the past year? Are you kidding? That's legalistic. You're telling me that's, but they are addicted to the electronic world. Did you know you can be drunk with many things? Some people are drunk with technology. They are they have got to have every app and every new release and and they are not redeeming their lives for what counts forever.